Hey guys, what's up? Matt Season here, back with another video for you. Returning to the game after a long absence can be a little tough sometimes. You log in, you have 100 quests thrown at you, pop-ups telling you to pick your talents, and you find that your class is completely different. It can be rough to know where to begin, so in this one, I thought I'd make a short and hopefully helpful guide to get you back on your feet and figure out what you want to do. This video was made during the Legion expansion, but it should still be handy for future expansions as well. So, the first piece of advice that I always give to returning players is to start a new character, even if it's temporary, and you won't level it all the way. It depends on what expansion you quit, but hopping into a high-level character with all of your abilities already unlocked can be a bit overwhelming. So to sort of ease into it, something you can do is remake the same class and just play it up until level 20 or so. It doesn't take long, and at that point, you have most of your bread and butter damage, healing, or tanking abilities, so you can get the core idea of how the class plays, and you can also more accurately gauge if you like it or not without that weight of not fully understanding a class affecting your decision. I think we all enjoy classes that we actually know how to play more, right? So, it's better to give it a fair shake and start at a level that you're comfortable with. The other option is just rolling a new class. Over time, and especially in Legion, pretty much every spec has seen drastic changes, even if you quit during Draenor. So specs you used to like, you might not like anymore, and specs you hated, you might enjoy now. Like for example, the Survivor Hunter, currently in Legion, is a melee class, which surprises a lot of people. It varies from class to class. In general, you have less buttons to push, and comparing it to the very beginning, which is vanilla, you'll find that you have way fewer abilities than you used to. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing will be up for you to decide. So, that's the biggest piece of advice I can give. Don't jump right into your old character. Start an alt first to ease into it. If you do end up going down this route, you may want to pick up some armor called heirlooms. This is special armor that gives you a bonus to experience gained from killing enemies and completing quests, so it's an option if you find the leveling is too slow. They're pretty expensive though. You can buy them in Ironforge for the Alliance and the Undercity for the Horde, and I'll have links to the vendors in the description if you have trouble finding them, and also a general guide on how they work in case you have any questions. And remember, you can play for free now up to level 20, so if you're on the fence of committing to resubscribing, definitely give it a trial run first. And on that note, a common question returning players have typically is, what do I need to buy to get into the game? Do I need to get every expansion I skipped? Is there still a sub fee, and so on? Well, luckily to that first question, the answer is no. To play the current game, you just need the base game, which you should have already, and the latest expansion. So, for example, Legion is the current expansion right now, and if you buy that, you can do all of Cataclysm, the Mists of Pandaria, the Warlords of Draenor, and of course Legion content all the way up to the level cap, which is currently 110. Now, when the next expansion, the Battle for Azeroth, launches, you just buy that and you'll get access to the Legion content and everything before that. And you do still need to pay that monthly subscription of $15 US, or whatever it is for your country. Okay, so you found a class you liked, maybe you picked up your old one. Your next question is, what's the goal here? Well, that's the cool thing about MMOs. The goal is what you make of it. We're not playing a linear game such as Final Fantasy where you eventually get a credit screen and that's it. Typically, the goal for most people is raiding at endgame, joining a guild, making friends, killing bosses, and getting loot. On this note, the raiding scene has changed a bit as well. There are now 4 difficulties for raiding. In order of easiest to hardest, it's LFR or looking for raid, normal, heroic, and Mythic. Whichever difficulty you want to do will depend on how much you want to challenge yourself. The LFR mode you can queue for in your dungeon finder, which is this little green icon on the bottom of your screen. It's the I key by default. From here you click on raids, and you should see a bunch of raids that you can queue in and get yourself some loot. They do have a gear requirement, so it might be grayed out though. So, to unlock them, you may need to do some questing for some loot. In general, they're pretty easy, and you don't need to look up strategies to get through them. I mean, it is better to do that, but it's not 100% necessary. If you don't want to download any add-ons or visit a third-party website, you can get a quick in-game breakdown of each boss and its abilities by hitting your map key, then clicking on the boss's icon, then clicking on the abilities and whatnot. And alternatively, you can also get to this page by opening up your adventure guide, which is this little red book at the bottom of your screen as well. It's Shift J by default. And then you go to raids and select whatever raid boss you're doing. You can also see what loot they drop, so it's pretty handy. If you'd like a nice all-around raiding add-on that straight up just tells you what to do, I recommend Deadly Boss Mods, which you may know about already. This just says stuff like get out of the fire, get away from players, get near players, and so on. It's essential for raiding in my opinion, but it's probably not 100% necessary for LFR since it's on the easier side. If you want to do anything above LFR, you do need to manually form a group, so this is where being in a guild will be handy. There also still exist pickup groups, or pugs, if you prefer that option. And if you quit before Wrath, there's a similar story going on for dungeons. Again, 4 difficulties, which is Normal, Heroic, Mythic, and Mythic Plus. You can queue for the first 2, and the latter 2 you have to manually form groups for if you want to do them. Mythic Pluses are sort of time trial runs of dungeons where they only drop loot at the end, and they scale infinitely on difficulty. The faster you clear them, the higher difficulty you can do, and the better rewards you get. It's a nice little endgame option for those of you who don't want to raid. But maybe your endgame goal is PvP. You can also queue for PvP in the same group finder tool, either Battlegrounds or Arena, and you'll find that they've been steadily adding new arenas and battlegrounds for you to play around with. But again, really, the goal is what you make of it. It could be making gold, getting achievements, collecting mounts, a little bit of everything, whatever. Just do what you think you'll enjoy, and you can't go wrong with that, right? That's it for the general tips, I guess. Those are the basics of what you need to know to get started without getting into specific expansion stuff. Next, I'll go over some Legion stuff, so if you're watching this video at a later date, a lot of this might be irrelevant. So, the Burning Legion is back, and it's up to you to drive them back and save the world. You know, another typical day. Something you'll also find here is that the game is very story-driven now, sort of bringing the RPG back in MMORPG. So you'll do yourself a favor if you pay attention to it, watch the cutscenes, and read the quests and whatnot on your journey to the max level, and even beyond. Obviously, your first goal is to level up to the expansion. You can first enter the Legion expansion and get your quest at level 98. If you head to Stormwind for the Alliance, or Orgrimmar for the Horde, you should get a pop-up quest asking for your assistance for an invasion against the Legion. This is sort of the introduction to the expansion, and it'll be your first big task to overcome upon hitting 98. From here, you're given more story quests, you're taken to the new town hub, which is Dalaran again, except this time it's in the new Broken Isles area. You'll also unlock something called an order hall for your faction, which is sort of your base of operations, and from here you pretty much just follow the quests. I don't want to go into too much detail here because, like I said, the story is a big part, and I don't want to spoil things too much for you. The purpose of this video is to get you started, not a full-on step-by-step guide on where to go and what to do. Some general tips to go out on though is for Legion, you'll get something called an artifact weapon for your class. This is a super powerful artifact that your whole specialization is really based around. You should get a new ability when you unlock it, and you can power it up by getting stuff called artifact power. This lets you pick various traits and perks that really boost your damage, tanking, or healing, and at first it looks like it's a pick and choose sort of thing, but you do eventually get every single one, so pick whatever you want. Every road eventually converges. You get this artifact power from many different tasks, typically by just playing the game. Dungeons, raiding, normal quests, and world quests and whatnot. Speaking of world quests, this is also something new with Legion. Upon hitting 110, you should automatically get a quest called Uniting the Isles from Khadgar and Dalaran, and once you complete this, you'll unlock quests from all around the Broken Isles that give you various rewards. Gear, artifact power, resources for your order hall, gold, and so on. They pop up periodically, and once a day you can do something called an emissary quest for an extra cash. This is at the bottom left of your map screen, and if you do certain quests for a certain faction and go to an NPC marked on your map, you get an extra cash with some loot. So, these world quests are basically the replacement to the old daily quest hubs that you may remember. There are hundreds of them, and they have much more variety, although you will of course eventually repeat the same ones. Another new feature with Legion are random legendaries. These are super powerful orange items that have a very small chance to drop. They're highly sought after for their great power, and they're similar to artifact power in the sense that you can get them by just playing the game. They can drop from raid bosses, dungeon bosses, those emissary chests, pretty much everything. You can also just straight up buy them with the currency called Awakening Essence, which again you get from many different sources. You can't really farm them since they're so RNG dependent, but if you want to get them as fast as possible, you should do all of your emissary quests, raids, and things of that nature. If you want a more detailed list on how to get them, I'll have a link in the description that you might find handy. Another thing you'll want to work on is unlocking flying in the Broken Isles. You'll find that you are grounded for this expansion. To be able to fly, you need to complete an achievement called the Broken Isles Pathfinder. This requires a bunch of different stuff, and just like the other things I talked about, you'll get it just by playing the game. You need to complete the main story quest for each zone in the Broken Isles, farm some reputation, uncover the map for each zone, a bunch of stuff basically. For the sake of keeping the length of this video short, I'll just have a link to a full guide to this in the description if you end up needing it. It is pretty time consuming, but it is definitely worth it, and it makes everything much faster. And one last thing I wanted to mention here is that eventually you will unlock a new zone for Legion called Argus. This place is pretty important in terms of gearing up. The loot you get from here is the best outside of dungeons and raiding, so you'll want to spend a lot of time here once you unlock it. It's a good way to get your eye level up for those LFR queues if you're having trouble with them. But at this point, I'm probably swamping you with too much information, so let's wrap it up here so you can actually play the game. Like I said, there's a lot to do. Just take it one step at a time, and do it at a pace you're comfortable with, and have fun. There's a mindset going around with the game that it's a scramble to the max level so you can start raiding and getting gear. That's fine if you enjoy that sort of thing, but don't forget to stop every now and then and smell the roses, as the saying goes. To me, it's more about the journey rather than the destination in this ginormous world that they created, and you'll do yourself a favor by savoring it, both in-game and in real life. Anyways, if you're viewing this video at a later date, I might have made an updated version of this for the Battle for Azeroth, so if you end up needing some advice specific to that expansion, I may have it somewhere on my channel. Regardless though, I wish you luck, I hope you found the video helpful, like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.